James Buchanan had a varied career as a lawyer, member of the House of Representatives, Minister of Russia, where he thought it was too cold and came back, and eventually as the 15th President of the United States. But it all started when he was a college student with a healthy dose of self-respect. Buchanan was very popular with his fellow pupils, and despite his frequent tomfoolery, he was often invited to esteemed college events.
To the Union!
Even though he greatly understood the positive impact of taking breaks, he was still very intelligent and managed to be one of the only ones eligible for senior honors. However, his teachers opposed this as they did not enjoy his troublemaking.
Father, they won't give me the senior honors. They can't do this to me.
Oh, suck it up, Buttercup.
He appreciates being a top. He hates me for stuff.
Fresh out of college, Buchanan used his father's connections to secure himself a low-level job as a lawyer making decent money. He became more involved in politics, becoming very well known due to his belief that the best way to be recognized was to be controversial. Unfortunately, he took being controversial a little too far, and a rival Democrat told him his views were so out of the ordinary for a self-proclaimed Federalist that he should consider joining a different party, which he actually did do eventually. One of his most concerning views was that we should invade Cuba to turn it into a slave state. After his fiancée broke up with him and then died of female hysteria, Buchanan sent her father multiple letters which asked to see her one last time, which were all returned unopened. Buchanan's friend told him that he should run for Congress to take his mind off things. From there, he became more involved in politics and more successful. Andrew Jackson gave him a job as minister to Russia, where he managed to secure a deal with Russia that would let the U.S. sail in the Black Sea.
Please have a seat. Thank you for coming, Mr. Buchanan. We're glad to have you here today.
Oh, yes, you should be.
Well, let's jump right in. One of the biggest complaints of your presidency was your unfair intervention into the Dred Scott decision. Do you believe your letters affected the outcome of the Supreme Court?
Well, when the case was happening, I was only a little ways from inauguration, and so the Supreme Court wouldn't have listened to me anyways, especially if they really wanted to let Dred Scott off scot-free. I don't think my letters affected them at all. It just happens that the outcome of the decision was the exact same of the outcome that I wanted. It just shows how much of a perfect fit I am for the current U.S. political situation. The backlash of the Northerners to the decision was completely uncalled for, and if they had just accepted the decision of the court, the Civil War never would have happened. We needed to keep the South happy. And so making the broad decision of saying that black people should never be citizens and are not currently citizens would have worked okay if it wasn't for those darned abolitionists.
While you were in the Senate, you strongly advocated for slaveholder rights. What was your reasoning?
Well, as you know, I clearly don't like slavery, but in the Constitution it says that citizens have the right to property. To take away the right to property would violate constitutional rights. Stopping slavery would have caused even more tensions with the North and the South, and keeping the Union together is our top priority.
So if one of your biggest concerns was keeping the Union together, what other measures did you use to try to prevent the Civil War?
Well, I heard that the Latter-day Saints down there are polygamists, and that their leader was murdering people and keeping people from leaving Utah. I also heard that they were trying to turn the natives against us. They were clearly staging a rebellion. Just look at this ridiculing song they wrote about us. Squawkular Harney's on the way, doo-dah, the Mormon people for to slay, doo-dah day. Then let us be on hand, by Brigham Young to stand, and if our enemies appear, we'll sweep them from the land. They're trying to overthrow the U.S. government and wipe out everybody in the U.S. To quote from my State of the Union address, we had to send such a large army to best convince them that we were their friends, not their enemies.
Anyways, your good friend Andrew Jackson called you and William King Aunt Nancy and Miss Fancy. What are your responses to these jibes?
When my dear fiancé passed away of hysteria, I was simply inconsolable, but then my good friend William came into my life, and I found comfort in the embrace of his arms. Jackson simply does not understand the strong bonds of male friendship. A man should be allowed to share a bed and a room with a man for 3 years without being taunted. And anyways, his accusations are baseless. There's no evidence, especially after I made my nephews burn all the letters.
Well, what do you believe went well during your presidency?
Well, I helped begin the negotiation for building the Transcontinental Railroad, and the transcontinental telegraph was finished under my watch. I also began negotiations with Russia to let us buy Alaska, which would be one of the best purchases in U.S. history, if you ask me. The economy also thrived under my watch because my ideas for free trade made it much easier for us to trade goods.
Well, your life certainly sounds like it has been exciting. Do you plan on recording your life in memoirs?
Well, at first I tried to get my friends to write my memoirs, but for some reason they all had business trips the day that I would ask them to, so yes, I suppose that I shall have to write my own.
After Buchanan's presidency, he didn't really do much except write his memoirs and stay at home.
Go away!
On June 1st, 1868, aged 77, Buchanan died of a respiratory infection. It was honestly kind of surprising that he didn't die sooner, as he was an extremely heavy drinker, drinking 16 toasts in one night, and cigar smoker, known to have the bad habit of chewing on cigar ends.
O Lord Almighty, as thou wilt.
Buchanan's failure to prevent the Civil War, bizarre attempt to start a civil war in Utah, anti-slavery yet pro-slaveholder right views, and unjust influence on Supreme Court decisions all led to the opinion of many historians that Buchanan was the worst president in U.S. history.